Hey guys, I am going to record this tutorial. This is how to make a hinge. This is the first step in creating your articulated 3D print. So a couple examples of what we're going to create today. So this is one where I used a dolphin, and then you can see it's got kind of this fun sort of it's bendable, movable piece to it. Here's another example. This was the Batman logo, and again, it has that same sort of hinge. And then kind of the next step up, I didn't design this one. I 3D printed it as an example. This is a different type of hinge, but this is kind of the fun, it's kind of like a snake slash dragon sort of view. But again, slightly different hinge. So we are using kind of the basic, I almost think of it like a door hinge, where it has one piece that can kind of move and rotate around the other. The snake here just uses almost like a little post sort of hinge. So you can see kind of here. There's like almost like a post in there, and then it can kind of flex on it. So we are designing this sort of hinge, but there is a whole lot more that you can do with this if you kind of catch on with what you need to do. It's probably going to be a little bit longer video. Feel free to kind of follow along, pause this video, and kind of make yours at the exact same time. So we'll go ahead and click on Create New Design. We're going to make kind of our initial couple of changes here to the work plane. So the first thing I want you to do right away is change your name. So this would be a good idea to put your initials and then what it is. Okay, so it's our hinge. We're going to edit our grid so that we can go to inches, and then we're going to go to that Dremel 3D40. So go ahead and click Update Grid. And we do have one more change that we are going to do. This is very important for you to get kind of the same design that I get. We're going to go down here to the snap grid, and we're going to change it from 1/8 to 1/16. And what that does is, so the snap grid is when every time you move an object, how far it moves depends on your snap grid. So usually, like every time we move it, it moves over 1/8 of an inch. Now it's going to move over 1/16 of an inch. So once you've done those three things, renamed it, edit your grid, and edit your snap grid, then we're ready to begin. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to drag a cube onto our work plane, and we're going to resize it so that it is the length of it, this front measurement here, we're going to make this 1/2 of an inch, and then type it in, hit enter, and then the width, so this number over here, again, click that corner if you don't see the numbers, we're going to make this 1/8 of an inch or 0.125. I can zoom in a little bit. And then let's make the height of it 3/8 of an inch or 0.375. Okay, so I'm going to type all of those in. I want to leave this color red. We're going to do a little bit of color coding, which hopefully will help with this tutorial. So now that we have it sized the way we want it, we're going to make a couple copies of it. So normally if you do Control C and then Control V, what you'll notice is that it moves it over. We don't want to do that. It requires more movement then. So I'm going to delete that out or do an undo for that. And instead, I'm going to click on it and I'm going to do Control D as in dog. And what that stands for is duplicate. So when I hit Control D, we saw it blink. It made a copy of it, but it made it in the exact same spot. So now you're going to hit your up arrow on your keyboard 3 times. So if I go 1, 2, 3, and then if I just change my view here, we can see they are separated just by a little tiny bit. In fact, that's actually, they're separated by 1/16 of an inch. That's why we changed that snap grid. We're going to do the exact same thing again. I'm going to click on this bottom one here, which is my original. I'm going to do a Control D, and then I'm going to use my arrows, and I'm going to move it down 3 clicks this time. So 1, 2, 3. Same thing. They're now separated by that little tiny gap there. So go ahead and do that on your project if you haven't already. And then the next step is we're going to change some colors because basically what we're establishing is the 2 different sides of our hinge. So kind of like these 2 pieces here are separated. So one piece is going to get kind of that middle piece, and then the other one gets the other. So I'm going to click the one on top. I'm going to hold Shift and click the one on the bottom. And then let's change their color to, say, let's do green. So if I go ahead and click green here. So we want green, red, green, and that will just kind of help us differentiate what we're doing. The next step, we are going to click the red, and I am going to move it to the right 2 times. Okay, so just using the arrows on my keyboard, 1, 2. That basically moves 1/16 of an inch each time. So moving it twice, we move it 2/16 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so those are the three parts of my hinge. The next step is going to be creating a hole through those pieces, which allows for some movement. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to bring a cylinder hole onto my work plane. Maybe rearrange here a little tiny bit. And we are going to make the length and the width of this cylinder zero point 0.2 by zero point 0.2. So I'm going to click the corner here and change this one to 0.2, hit enter, change this one to 0.2, hit enter. Okay. I'm going to leave the height of it alone for right now. I don't need to worry about that yet. We do need to rotate this cylinder because we want it kind of going through these pieces here. So I'm going to, there's always going to be three different circular arrows. You might have to kind of move your view so that's a little bit easier to find it. And I'm going to use this one here. If I click on it and then I hit that 90 degrees, I think it's easier to type the degrees than just to try to drag it, because if you miss it, it can get all goofed up. If you move it the wrong degrees, just undo and then try moving it again. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to move this cylinder so that it's cutting through kind of all three of these shapes. So I'm going to kind of just generally move it over kind of this way. I might use that black cone to kind of get it kind of down a little ways. Really, for this project, you're going to want to change your view a lot. So I notice right here, there's a very thin part of the red piece there, and I don't want it to be too thin because these are pretty small. So I'm going to click on the cylinder, and then I'm going to go to the right just one click to kind of get it moved in there. So I think there, then we're seeing we've got enough of the green, enough of the red kind of on each and every side. So now that we kind of have it side to side where we want it, we want to make sure kind of up and down that it's kind of here in the center. So thankfully, because these are all kind of the same height, we can kind of adjust that easily. So I'm selected on the cylinder. I can see the blue line. I'm going to hold shift and I'm just going to click on this green one here. Since all my shapes are the same height, this will be possible. I'm going to go to my align. And then the only one we want to click is looking kind of vertically or up and down here, this one right in the middle. So that gets it kind of vertically aligned in the middle. So I'm just going to click that one. We don't need to click any of these other ones, just that one there. All right, so I have what will become kind of my hole, but I don't want to make that hole quite yet. We need to make the hole um, because we need, so for this middle piece here, we need a hole in this one, and then we need kind of a rod going through it. You can see I can kind of lift that up and down. That's kind of what we're in the process of making right now. So I'm going to click on that cylinder, and I am going to make a copy of it. So Control C and then Control V. This time it did move a little over the side. That's okay. I think it's easier to work with this way. All right, so I'm going to resize for the circle on the end of this one. We are going to make this 1/8, so 0.125. So I'm going to click the corner here, and where it says 0.2, I'm going to make that 0.125. Hit enter. I'm going to leave this one alone for right now. We'll change that length later, but then I'm going to click the white square on top here to get this other 0.2. I'm going to make that 0.125, type it in, and hit enter. Okay. So we now have kind of the diameter we want. I'm going to make this solid, and this will eventually become part of the green piece. So I'm going to click make it green. And then I'm going to change my view here, and we kind of want to get this, and it's kind of hard sometimes to do. I want it to stick out a little bit just because it's a little bit easier to then select those two items. So you can see I have it sticking forward, but we're trying to get it inside of that cylinder here. So I'm going to click on the hole. I'm going to hold shift. I'm going to click on the green cylinder, and then let's go ahead and align these. And again, I'm going to align this time kind of on the vertical side here. I want them kind of centered to each other. And then I want on just side to side here. So looking at the ends, I want them aligned kind of in the middle, side to side. So I'm going to click that one as well. Okay, so we have, if I kind of scroll through here, we've got our three rectangles, we've got a whole cylinder, and then we've got kind of this solid green cylinder here. So for this step, you're going to select the red rectangle, you're going to hold shift, and you're going to select the gray cylinder. So we're going to make a hole through the red piece. That's important. We only want it through the red piece. Okay. So I have the red, hold shift, select that gray cylinder, and I'm going to group those together. So notice we do not have a hole here in the green. If we were able to kind of get kind of a look here, it's kind of hard to see, but through an angle, you can kind of see down here in the corner, there's a little bit of a hole in there right now. So the next thing we need to do is we need to resize this green kind of peg here. So one way that I think this is easy to do is I'm going to select the green rectangle. I'm going to hold shift and select the other green rectangles, just the two green rectangles. I'm going to click on the solid here, and then we're actually going to make these transparent just for a moment, just so we can kind of see where everything is at. So I'm going to go ahead and make those transparent. You'll see kind of that they become invisible here. Now, the reason we're doing this is because we need to line up this solid green cylinder so it fits between those two exactly. So we're going to, if I click on the corner here, so we still have it 1 inch long, we're going to change that to 0.5, only half of an inch long. We'll go ahead and hit enter. You'll see it shrink down. So then I'm going to change my view here, and I'm going to use, and I'm only selected on that green cylinder. I'm use the arrows on my keyboard. I'm just going to kind of move it over so that the end of the cylinder is lined up here and that the end of the cylinder is lined up here. So that's kind of what's nice about making those two kind of end ones transparent, is it allows you to be able to kind of see through those two. Okay, so now that I have those lined up, I'm going to select those green transparent ones, and let's get rid of that transparency so they're kind of back to solid. You can kind of see, I can see the shape here, and if I turn it around on this, I can see it here, but it's not necessarily sticking out through any further. But we are now ready. We can actually select those. So you don't want to do, actually, no, we don't want to select all yet. We just want to click on the green rectangle, hold shift, click on the green rectangle, and then very carefully try to select onto that green cylinder. So I just kind of missed selecting. So here's another trick. We can draw the square around everything, but we don't want to include the red one in this. So I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to select the red one, which in this case is going to unselect that. So just watch that again. I drew the rectangle around everything, but I don't want the red. So I'm going to hold down shift, select the red. So now it's actually only selected on green. And then I'm going to group those, which makes that one solid piece. So I can't see that cylinder end there. We have the hole through the red one, and so then we have this green one, which is going to create that hinge sort of piece to it. So then the last thing we're going to do in creating this hinge, which is just the first step in your project, is we're going to add more holes into this, because when you get to actually creating your item, basically we need to somehow split the shape, and then we also need to make sure that here in the hinge stays open. So we are going to make our hole. So I'm going to drag kind of a whole rectangle out here. I'm going to double check measurements of this, and I'll be right back. 1 second. Okay, so figured out, double checked my measurements so I can tell you the correct one. We're going to take this cylinder, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and side to side. So if I click the corner here, kind of this front measurement, I'm going to make half of an inch, so 0.5. And then this kind of width here, this other kind of go front to back, I'm going to make 3/8 or 0.375. Okay. And what this does is if I move this, kind of drag it kind of over the shape here, what you'll notice if I kind of zoom in, use my F key here, is that we want a little bit of the green on this side sticking out. We want a little green on kind of each side here sticking out. And then if I turn it back this way, we also have a little bit of that red sticking out. Okay. And what that does is it's going to leave the gap in the hinge open. Okay, so we don't want it to become solid in there when we group it with our actual. All right, and then the last step we're going to make is we're going to make a really long, skinny rectangle, which is going to cut through our shape. So this is an item that you can adjust in size. We're going to make it just kind of generically in size to begin with. So I'm going to click the corner here and we're going to make it 1/8 wide. So 0.125. That's going to make it really kind of skinny. And then just to kind of like get started here again, this is something that you might resize when you actually create your item, but I'm just going to make it, let's say 2.5 inches from front to back. So I misclicked there. So I'm going to delete off that, click on my shape again, click on that white corner, and let's make this 2.5 inches. Oh, I did it again. Okay, so click on my shape, click on my corner, and then just click right on that number 2.5. There we go. Got it this time. All right. So, oh, actually, you know what? I was incorrect. We're not going to make this 1/8 of an inch wide. So I'm going to, oh, it made it 3/7. I don't know what I typed in. Let's try this again. When I click on the corner, oh, I did. Okay. Getting confused. Sorry, guys. We don't want 1/8. We want it to be 1/16. All right. So I'm going to click here. And since 1/8 is 0.125, we're going to kind of take half of that. We're going to type in 0.0625. So that's half of that 0.125. Go ahead and hit enter. We can still keep that 2.5. So we'll see that it's kind of really skinny here. And then what we're going to do with this is we are going to line up the two holes that we now have on our screen. So I'm going to click on this first one. I'm going to hold shift and click the other one. We don't want any of the reds and green pieces. We're going to go to our line. The first thing you're going to do is you are going to align kind of from this left to right. You're going to align on this far right side. And then from front to back, we're going to align in this middle. Okay, so that was this right side here, left to right on the right. And then from front to back, it was the one in the middle. And then I'm going to group these. We can then, oops, don't resize. Okay, so I went to click and move mine and I resized it. So I'm just going to hit Control Z. So when you click on it, make sure you don't accidentally click on any of those squares. And I'm just going to kind of move this back to that spot where we liked it. So again, I want to see a little bit of green on all the edges here. And then I want that little piece of red sticking out on that side. And with that, you have created your hinge. Okay, so this is going to be your master hinge. I want you to stop here. If you're watching this video for my class, you're going to screenshot this design. You're going to put it into your HyperDoc. And then there will be kind of more information, another video later on to actually get this into your shape of choosing. This was just creating your hinge. Let me know if you have any questions.